There's no doubt there's queasiness among Republicans, certainly late last night. The fact that Jeff Flake, who's on the Judiciary Committee, said they want to hear from the accuser means we're probably going to hear from the accuser. Most likely there will have to be a delay in the vote in committee on him. The big thing to watch is Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins in Maine, these moderate Republicans who people thought would have more concerns with Kavanaugh. Are they persuaded by this? I know Susan Collins said, listen, I'm sort of unnerved in the timing. Why did Democrats sit on this and then just drop it a couple of days before the vote? The question is, does she come back and say, listen, I have serious reservations and we want to hear from her? What we were hearing last night out of the White House is they really want to force this. They want to play hardball. They want to say, listen, if you want to testify to the accuser, come testify before the committee. Do it in public. Let's do it quickly and let's have the vote so that people can go into this eyes wide open. So I think in the next 48 hours, we'll know a lot more about, one, does this delay things, and does it become truly problematic? Is this something that could derail the nomination? Right now, Republicans don't think so, but that could change.
And it can change based on what she says?
I mean, it's less what she says, because we kind of, if you read the Washington Post story,
you know what she said. That's what I'm curious. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Oh, it would change. It would be like, does what she said, does it change the mind of a Susan Collins or a Jeff Flake? Does somebody who was supportive of Kavanaugh, who could derail the nomination, stand up and say, listen, I'm not going to vote for him anymore because of what we know? And that's the part we don't know. Even when Jeff Flake says, I have concerns and I want to hear from her, that's different from saying, I have concerns, and if we don't hear from her, I'm not going to vote in committee to move this to the full floor.
Jim, what does this mean? Jeff Flake is not somebody who is running for re-election, who is worried about what his constituents think. You do have other senators who would worry about that. Is this a situation where, if it's out there and it continues to reverberate back through, it's a situation where they're pressured to make sure that they don't support it? Or how do you think this really plays out? Is time the element that is going to put additional pressure on those senators?
Again, we don't really know, because you have to look at someone like Susan Collins, who understands she's already under a lot of pressure. The Democrats have dumped a lot of money into her state to try to pressure her to be anti-Kavanaugh. So the question is, does she look at this and say, you know what, this is enough for me to fundamentally change my mind? If you step way back, what worries some Republicans is they look at November, they look at the polls running up to them, and they say, well, we're getting clobbered among suburban women. And if this makes it even harder for us with suburban women, and we end this election with fewer seats, and we see more like the party of white men, including white men who sort of rammed through this judicial nomination, this pick to the court, despite this accusation from a woman, that concerns. But I don't know that there's a lot of Republicans in the Senate that would respond to that and say, therefore, I'm not going to vote for Kavanaugh. So I think the betting in the White House, the betting around Kavanaugh, is still that it'll be an ugly week, but that it's a week that he can survive and that he'll end up on the bench.
Jim, when in the piece from Axios, I think in highlighting the hardball tactics that the Republicans are planning, one of the things you said was they might ask for testimony in front of the committee or Congress, which for some reason it seems to imply that Professor Ford would be loath to do that. If she doesn't do that but appears on a media or a news show.
It seems like her mindset has changed pretty rapidly. A week ago, she didn't want to talk about it at all.
Yeah, but there's a difference between that and sitting in front of Congress. Is there a notion that she's not going to want to sit in front of Congress and maybe just gives the interview to, I don't know, to a journalist outlet?
There's certainly some Republicans who think that she's not going to want to. And listen, you go and you sit before that committee, you go public, you put your face on TV and have tens and 20s of millions of people watching you. Your life is really ripped apart. You become known forever for this one moment. That's a huge thing. That's a big step from talking to a reporter one-on-one. And remember, all the evidence is it was reluctant.
She didn't want to come forward. Yeah, this is why she said she didn't want to come forward.
I mean, that seems very authentic that she didn't want to come forward. Right. She had brought it sort of privately, confidentially, and only, she says, now came forward because all these other reporters were starting to dig around. People are starting to say things about her that she thought would shape sort of her own narrative and the meaning of her differently than she wants.
Right. Are these issues disqualifying as the world changed in any way in a Me Too post? You know, we used to have conversations even just a week ago about Les Moonves here.
There's no doubt that the world has changed. You're seeing.
But has Washington changed?
Pardon?
The world, by the way, the business world has clearly changed.
Yes.
The question is, has Washington changed?
I don't know. I think it's a really good question. I don't know that this is enough. That's something that happened in high school where she's making an allegation.
But Jim, allegedly happened. You've got the other, first, and in the interview, she said it was 4 people, or she didn't say it, but the person she was talking to supposedly said the wrong thing. But the 2 people that were involved.
By the way, Les Moonves denied all of these things. Right. A lot of these people have denied all of these things, and that hasn't changed.
Right, but you have 2 people that were there supposedly that said it didn't happen. So it's a she says it did, he said it, and I don't think she said it till 2012.
The other gentleman who was in the room says he doesn't recall. I think
I thought he denied it.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
What I saw was that he said he didn't recall
Separate
that
topic. A number of big business executives over the weekend who have been supportive of Republicans over time. I'm thinking of Les Wexner, reportedly said, I'm no longer going to support this, quote, nonsense. Then there was a column in the New York Times over the weekend. Seth Klarman, who is an independent but has given a lot of money over the years to Republicans, clearly putting up, I think he may be the largest donor now to the Republican Party ahead of the midterms. Does money talk? Does this change the dynamic at all in terms of how either Republicans or Democrats think about any of this?
I don't think it changes it in the short term. This is a huge issue for the Republican Party. It's not a lot of people. You see what Ben Sasse was saying on Twitter and in a couple interviews over the last week where he's rethinking being a Republican. You've now had a couple of donors who are saying, I'm either thinking about not being a Republican anymore, certainly not giving money to the party anymore. You have some other figures who aren't as well known, Steve Schmidt, some other operatives who've left the party. In a 50-50 nation, when you start to lose people on the edges, it can matter. And so I think this identity crisis, at least for some Republicans who had either held their nose or sort of, we'll see, wait and see approach, who are now saying, I can't take it anymore. If enough of those Republicans decide to bolt the party, and even if it's a couple of percent, that makes a big difference.